She gazed directly at me. Not the baby, not her son, but me. Then she spoke those words. That baby cannot possibly be related to us. Silence enveloped the room. The pump emitted a steady beeping, while in the distance, the faint sound of a baby crying echoed from another room. I held Arya close, my arms wrapping around her firmly. Ethan looked at me, his eyes wide as if he had just emerged from a dream in a different reality. I noticed the bewilderment spreading over his face, as if he were attempting to understand something that was already clear. But what about me? I simply smiled. Not the type of smile that conveys, "I'm fine." No. The kind that communicates, "I understand your intentions clearly, and I won't engage with it this time." What she was unaware of, what everyone else in that room was oblivious to, was that I had already taken action. I was already aware of the truth. And it wasn't the type she had anticipated. Then the door opened, and Anne entered with the doctor, holding a manila folder containing the test results. "He mentioned that there was something important for you to understand. When Ethan and I first crossed paths, we were merely two financially struggling students sharing a table in the library at the University of Michigan. He possessed a restless energy, perpetually tapping his fingers on the desk, as if his thoughts raced ahead of his ability to articulate them. I was quite different. Attentive and careful, the type of individual who remains quiet until a significant point arises. Perhaps that's the reason we were successful together. He had me in stitches. I assisted him in taking it easy. We complemented one another perfectly. Following graduation, we relocated to Chicago and tied the knot in a small courthouse ceremony, with my dad and younger sister by our side. Ethan's parents were absent. Margaret expressed that it felt too hurried, and that a genuine wedding ought to be postponed until the Monroes could organize it appropriately. However, we chose not to wait. Love doesn't always linger. It would be untrue to claim that her disapproval didn't hurt. She never raised her voice, never insulted me. No, Margaret preferred to wield silence as her weapon of choice. Chilling, deliberate quietude. Whenever she spoke, her words carried weight. "Is this really the best you can offer, Ethan? Or she appears to be feeling quite a bit. Isn't stability essential in a marriage?" Nevertheless, we made an effort. We invited her to every holiday and every birthday. At times she would appear, and at other times she would not. Ethan always said that she would eventually come around. I wished to have faith in that. Beginning our journey to have a baby felt like opening a new chapter. We were optimistic, perhaps even a bit innocent. However, the first miscarriage occurred. And the second one. The doctors informed me that I have endometriosis and that conceiving might be challenging. Each month turned into a test of patience, and every negative result felt like a setback. It felt as though my body was constantly letting me down. Margaret's compassion was somewhat constrained. "Perhaps it simply isn't destined to happen," she said to Ethan one time. Not me. She never mentioned it directly to me. My father, Ronald, made an effort to support me. He is a calm and composed individual. A former mail carrier who brought up my sister and me after our mother passed away. He may not speak often, but when he does, his words carry weight. He reached out to me every Sunday just to see how I was doing. My sister Lily, studying nursing in Texas, would send me memes and "thinking of you" selfies at 3 a.m. At times, I found myself in tears while reading them. Just as we began to explore the idea of adoption, it occurred. I arrived later than expected. I refrained from taking a test immediately, as I couldn't endure the thought of facing another disappointment. However, I eventually did, and it turned out to be positive. While we were brushing our teeth, I shared the test with Ethan. He glanced at it, then at me, and let his toothbrush fall into the sink. We shared laughter and tears, toothpaste lingering on our lips. The journey through pregnancy was challenging. I experienced severe morning sickness, nerve pain, and almost constant anxiety. Each ultrasound was a delicate balance, yet every time the heartbeat was present. Powerful. Unyielding. It was as if she was announcing to everyone, I'm on my way. Accept it. Margaret was rather quiet. There will be no gifts. No congratulations offered. It was just one phone call in which she said, inform me when you discover the gender. That was all there was to it. I welcomed Arya into the world after 17 hours of labor. She emerged with a flushed face and a restless demeanor, sporting a full head of black hair and the largest hazel eyes I had ever encountered. The nurses passed her to me, and in that instant everything else faded away. Not my concerns. Not Margaret. Only her. She gazed at me as if she understood that I was her refuge. Ethan wept more intensely than I did. He continued to murmur, she's flawless. You accomplished it, darling. The following day, our room was bustling with activity. Flowers, balloons, nurses coming by, my dad on FaceTime, Lily weeping from afar. Even Margaret arrived, clad in beige from head to toe, with not a single hair out of place. She entered, glanced at me for a moment, then focused directly on Arya in my arms, and that's when I noticed it. The glimmer in her gaze. Uncertainty. Assessment. Arya felt like a piece of a puzzle that didn't align with her vision of the Monroe family. Initially, she remained silent, her gaze fixed intently. There was something in that moment that sent a shiver down my spine. I passed Arya to Ethan and reclined. Margaret moved in, arms crossed, and that's when she spoke up. This baby cannot be our blood. When she said it, this baby can't be our blood. It felt as if a window had been opened in the room, and all the warmth was instantly drawn away. Everyone remained still. Ethan halted in his tracks, caught between the bassinet and the chair beside my bed. A nurse by the monitors lifted her eyebrows and discreetly exited, likely to steer clear of whatever was about to unfold. I gazed at Margaret. She was not upset. That could have been simpler. She was composed, detached, as if she merely presented a truth. Ethan finally spoke with some hesitation. Mom, what do you mean? She moved a bit nearer to him, softening her voice just a touch. Observe her, Ethan. Simply observe her. She bears no resemblance to you, me, or anyone else in this family. Eyes like hazel, skin with an olive hue. She doesn't compare to a Monroe. This child isn't ours, and I'm not sure who she is. I remained there, in disbelief. Not due to her doubts about the baby's appearance. I had anticipated a response from her, but the direct accusation? Before Ethan? In a hospital room where I was still bleeding, still recovering, still healing from a brutal battle my body had just endured? Ethan faced me. His expression revealed what he lacked the bravery to articulate just yet. Is there any validity to this? That was the moment that hurt. I have never been unfaithful to him, nor have I even glanced at another man. I loved Ethan with all my heart, even when his mother made me feel inadequate. Even during dinners where she overlooked me, as if I were not there at all. I had invested so much into this family, and now she was dissecting it with precision. I cleared my throat. My voice emerged steady, more cutting than I anticipated. Are you really paying attention to this? Ethan remained silent. Margaret folded her arms and turned to face me. I simply want to safeguard my son and this family. If you have nothing to conceal, then a paternity test shouldn't pose any issues for you. It was not a question. It posed quite a challenge. I gazed down at Arya. She lay asleep, her small fingers tucked into the hospital blanket, blissfully oblivious to the turmoil unfolding around her. That's when a change occurred within me. Not anger. I had no intention of screaming. Do not be afraid. I had no secrets to conceal. It was clear. Steadfast and unyielding determination. I locked eyes with Margaret and replied, fine. Take the test. However, when the results arrive and you discover you were mistaken, I hope you understand that you have just challenged your granddaughter's position in this family from the moment she entered the world. Ethan moved closer as if he had something to express, but all he could muster was, Maya, let's not argue, all right? Margaret offered me a warm, contented smile. All right, I'll take care of that. She walked away from the room as if she hadn't just set off an explosion within it. As soon as she left, it felt as if everything began to flow once more. The air came back. The machines emitted a series of beeps. Ethan took a seat beside me, without a word. He glanced at Arya before turning his gaze to me. You're aware that she's mistaken, aren't you? He finally spoke. I acknowledged with a nod. I certainly do. Do you? His delayed response spoke volumes, the silence conveying more than any words could express. I averted my gaze from him. It wasn't due to a lack of love for him, rather, at that moment, I had to safeguard something of greater significance. The truth of my daughter. My reality. I managed to stay composed. Not at this moment. The following morning, a social worker from the hospital arrived and proposed referring us to a third-party genetic lab that provided same-day testing. Ethan concurred. I did too. Margaret was determined to be present when the results were announced. Absolutely, she did. That night, I held Arya close and whispered into her ear, they can ask whatever they wish. However, I am familiar with you. I am aware of each heartbeat I held within me. Each kick. Each desire. You belong to me. Regardless of what others might say. By the next morning, I was ready to speak up. I hardly slept that night. Arya drifted in and out of slumber, and each time I shut my eyes, Margaret's voice echoed in my mind. This baby cannot be our blood. Repeatedly. Similar to a fissure in the wall that continued to expand endlessly. I observed Ethan dozing in the corner chair, nestled in the most uncomfortable hospital recliner imaginable, his hoodie draped over his face. He appeared utterly drained. It's not only about the delivery, it's also about being right in the center of it all. Stuck in the middle of the wife he chose and the mother who nurtured him. As the sun rose, I called for the nurse and inquired about our discharge time. I wished to return home. I required my own bed. My personal atmosphere. I had to escape the chill of that room and begin restoring the warmth we once had there. Before we departed, I reached out to the genetic testing lab that the hospital had recommended to us. I took the initiative without waiting for Ethan to bring it up. I took action without waiting for approval. I just accomplished it. I arranged the appointment. All three of us are here. Ethan, Arya, and I. When I mentioned it to Ethan, he paused for a moment. Do we really have to go through with this? You are aware of the reality. I am aware of the truth. This is simply my mom causing a bit of commotion. I stared at him intently. Then allow her to succumb to her own uncertainty. Let her hear the truth clearly and straightforwardly, from someone in a lab coat who is indifferent to last names or skin tones. He nodded with deliberation. All right. We will get it done. Thus, we proceeded. The laboratory was serene, sterile, nestled within an unremarkable office structure in the heart of the city. We were in a cozy waiting area, the fluorescent lights flickering above us, with Arya peacefully asleep in her carrier nestled between us. I found myself unable to look away from her. She remained completely composed, oblivious to our actions. A technician entered, youthful, likely not older than Lily, and detailed the process. We need mouth swabs for each of us. Easy, effortless, quick. Ethan went first, followed by me, and then Arya. Margaret didn't show up, despite her insistence on being present for the arrival of the results. She expressed her trust in the process, yet desired to witness it formally. It seemed she was aiming for a theatrical moment, reminiscent of a cliched courtroom drama, where she could dramatically declare, I knew it. What she didn't foresee, what none of us anticipated, was the true nature of the results that would come to light. We returned home and waited patiently. I fed Arya, changed her, and held her close on my chest as the sunlight gently danced across our bedroom wall. My heartbeat synced with hers. Consistent. Absolutely. I felt no fear. I felt exhausted. Not related to motherhood. Not about demonstrating my worth. I'm simply exhausted by the reality that this moment had to happen at all. 2 days later, we received a call from the lab. The results have been announced. Ethan responded and then passed the phone to me. His hands trembled. We were instructed to come in person to go over everything. The woman stated that there is a secondary finding we need to discuss in person. Is there a secondary finding? I sensed a pressure in my chest, yet I nodded in response. All right. We will be there. Margaret was determined to join this time. She arrived at the lab 15 minutes early, sporting sunglasses indoors, as if she were about to unveil some major red carpet scandal. I kept silent around her. Ethan offered her a half-hug instinctively, and we all entered together. The same technician welcomed us, accompanied this time by a genetic counselor. That detail alone gave me chills. Specialists are only called in when things are more complicated. We gathered in a small consultation room, the four of us together. The technician accessed a folder. I observed her hands, steady and exact, as she turned the pages. She glanced at us and stated, "We have your results," and indeed, Arya is Ethan's biological daughter, without a doubt. Gusubgajamgugugugu, posantumaki. I let out a breath. Ethan blinked and gazed at his mother. Margaret's expression remained unchanged. No apology, no response, just silence. However, the counselor cleared her throat and added, "We did uncover an unexpected result while reviewing Ethan's genetic data. It's important for everyone to take note of this." The room fell silent once more. Our findings indicate that Ethan is not biologically related to the woman he thinks is his mother. At that moment, even Margaret recoiled. The words collided with the room like a car crash. Ethan does not share a biological connection with the woman he thinks is his mother. Quiet. Margaret opened and closed her eyes rapidly. One time. Gradually. As if a stranger had just addressed her in an unfamiliar tongue. "I apologize. Could you repeat that, please?" she asked, her voice trembling for the first time in all the years I've known her. The counselor reiterated it, this time with a softer touch. "The genetic markers indicate that there is no maternal connection between Ethan and you, Mrs. Monroe. We conducted the test again on 2 occasions to verify the results." I gazed at Ethan. His entire body became motionless, as if someone had just disconnected him from power. Motionless, silent, completely still. I noticed the color fading from his face. That doesn't seem correct," Margaret said, her voice growing tense. "It seems there has been an error. I was present at his birth. I recall holding him." The counselor nodded with understanding. "I can see how surprising this might be. The science is quite clear. Arya, the daughter of Ethan and Maya, is genetically matched to her father. However, the comparison of maternal qualities between you and Ethan simply doesn't hold up." Margaret appeared as though the very earth beneath her had transformed. For once, she found herself not steering the conversation. "Are you implying that I am not his mother?" The counselor inhaled deeply. "We're not implying that you didn't raise him. We are stating that you did not give birth to him." Ethan finally spoke, his voice raspy. "So, who was it that did?" No one responded. No one in that room had any idea. The counselor mentioned that there was a possibility Ethan had been switched at birth. It's uncommon, yet it occurs. It could have been a clerical error, or perhaps something different entirely. The exact circumstances couldn't be confirmed. They were only aware of what the test indicated. I glanced at Margaret, and for the first time, I didn't perceive any arrogance. I observed a mix of bewilderment, sorrow, and perhaps a touch of apprehension. And it struck me. This was more than a mere twist in my narrative. It was a break in hers. Ethan muttered, his gaze fixed on the floor. "You brought me up, and I'm not even your..." Margaret stood up abruptly. "Do not even think about completing that sentence. I'm not concerned about what that document states. I am your mom. I brought you up. I adored you. I supported you during chickenpox, soccer injuries, and heartbreaks. I dedicated my entire existence to you. Her voice wavered at the end. Ethan gazed at her, tears glistening in his eyes. So, what was the reason behind your attempt to break mine apart? Margaret remained silent. At last, I found my voice. Arya belongs to you, regardless of your feelings about it. It's not about DNA, it's about her being a part of your son and being born into this family we've worked hard to create, despite all the challenges. I approached the counselor. Have we finished here? She acknowledged with a nod. We will supply written copies of the results. If you want a referral to a legal team or therapist, we can. We're finished, Ethan said softly. We exited the lab with Arya cradled in my arms, sleeping soundly as if she were untouched by any of this. Ethan remained silent during the car ride home. He gazed out the window, the test papers resting in his lap. Margaret chose not to ride with us. She strolled to her car by herself. For once, she remained silent, refraining from uttering a final word to elevate her presence. She simply gazed at Ethan and murmured, "I didn't know." For the first time in years, I found myself believing her. Upon arriving home, Ethan entered the nursery and took a seat beside Arya's crib. I observed him softly glide his finger along her delicate arm and snugly tuck her in. I took a seat next to him. "What's on your mind?" I inquired. He shook his head in disbelief. "I feel lost and uncertain about my identity. However, I am aware of her identity. I am aware of your identity. Perhaps that's all it takes to begin anew." We remained quiet in that moment. Us three. A fresh form of stillness. Neither harsh nor unkind, but restorative. Perhaps family isn't solely defined by birth. Perhaps it's about what you decide to stand up for. Life didn't suddenly return to its usual rhythm after that day. It certainly opened up. Yet, at times, fractures allow the light to shine through. The days following the DNA results were eerily silent. No further messages from Margaret. No calls. No remarks. Ethan chose not to pursue it further. I didn't either. It felt as if a fracture had formed between them. An unvoiced and revered essence. And neither of them understood how to put things back together. However, my attention had shifted away from her. I have a daughter now. A small, radiant wonder, who transformed everything. Each gentle coo she produced, every late-night feeding, every drowsy smile served as a reminder that this was indeed reality. Not assessments. Not allegations. Not family ties. Her. One evening, I recall sitting in the nursery, cradling Arya as the sound machine filled the room with the soothing sounds of ocean waves. Ethan stood in the doorway, cradling 2 mugs of tea. He said quietly, "She looks like you when she sleeps." I smiled. "Is that what you believe?" He nodded and approached, taking a seat next to me. Identical forehead crease. That same determined little chin. He took a moment, glancing downward. I am unaware of the identity of my biological mother. I'm not sure if I really want to find out. However, I am aware of this. You always made me feel like I truly belonged to you. Not even once. That held greater significance than he might have understood. After that, we hardly spoke about Margaret. She made one attempt to connect. A message via email. 3 paragraphs. Part apology, part explanation. She expressed her regret for questioning Arya's role in the family, noting that the test had unsettled her and she required time to reflect. I have read it. I chose not to respond. I was also in the midst of processing. Not only what occurred, but all the events that preceded it. The years spent attempting to belong to a family that defined love through likeness. The lengths I went to contort myself into smaller forms just to gain acceptance. As soon as I paused, as soon as I took a stand for my daughter and for myself, the truth emerged. It's amusing how that happens. A few weeks later, I began seeing a therapist. Not due to my own unraveling, but rather to grasp why I clung to another's approval for such an extended period. It was challenging. However, it was beneficial. I came to understand that Margaret wasn't the source of my suffering. She reflected it perfectly. I no longer required her reflection. Ethan and I became stronger, though it didn't happen immediately. There were lengthy conversations at 2 a.m., serene dinners filled with more silence than dialogue, and instances where the burden of it all almost tore us apart. Yet, we selected one another. Once more and once more. Each passing day. That is the true essence of love. It's not only about the butterflies, it's also about the rebuilding. My dad arrived to meet Arya when she was 3 months old. He cradled her in his large, rough hands as if she were the most fragile thing he had ever encountered. "She's got your eyes, kid, and your passion." Lily sent us a beautifully crafted scrapbook, filled with photos, notes, and affirmations she created herself. On the cover, she wrote, "Family is not just about blood. It serves as evidence." I placed it on the nursery wall. Margaret has not encountered Arya once more. Perhaps someday. Perhaps not. However, I don't lose any sleep over it, as I've come to realize that you don't require anyone's approval to feel complete. Love, parent, and protect without seeking their approval. All you require is honesty. And soul. And the bravery to stand firm even when everything around you shifts. And that's what Arya provided me. As soon as she stepped in, I found a reason to stand tall. I gaze at her now. One hand always nestled in her blanket, those bright hazel eyes observing everything around her. I experience a sense of tranquility I never imagined I would achieve. This is my family. It isn't flawless. It doesn't follow the usual norms. However, it belongs to us. No one can take that away from me. If this story resonated with you, even in the slightest, I would be eager to hear your reflections. Have you ever found yourself standing up for your truth when no one else seemed to understand? Leave a comment below. I read all of them. If you experienced any emotions while watching, if this resonated with your own journey or offered a fresh perspective on family, kindly give the video a thumbs up. It provides assistance beyond your awareness. Pass it along to someone who needs to know that family is about more than just blood ties. If you're new around here or just stopping by, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. More stories are on the way, authentic, unfiltered tales about love, identity, motherhood, healing, and the wonderfully chaotic ways life can surprise us. Thank you for tuning in.